We are live. Welcome to the NFL Showdown Strategy Show, Week 4, Monday Night Football edition. I am Josh Engelman. I am not Dave Loughran. He is not here for today, so I will be filling in pretty easily, I might add. I am joined by Matt Kajeski. I am joined by Alex Brown. We are going to break down everything we've got going on for tonight, Raiders and Chargers. But before we get started, first, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live, and give a little bit of a shout out to No House Advantage for being the presenting sponsor of this show. We'll talk about No House Advantage in a little bit, but first we got to start here. AB, what's going on, man?
What's up, man?
How was your NFL Sunday yesterday?
Awful. I'm starting to think. I know very little about football. My guys just aren't playing well.
Well, your Bears played well enough. They got the W. They got done what they needed to do against the Lions, as they should.
Right, but I'm not playing any of them because I didn't think they were going to do well.
Well, that'll do it. Matt, was it any better for you? That was your NFL Sunday.
It was a profitable day, nothing crazy. The only Bear I played was David Montgomery, so luckily he got in the end zone a little bit there, but no stacks of the game like AB. Wasn't running out a ton of Lions, a ton of the Bears pass catchers. No Darnell Mooney, unfortunately.
A lot of interesting things happening in the NFL yesterday, or just in the sports landscape altogether. Jets upset the Titans. The Chiefs smack Laffy's Eagles. Yes, I'm going to grind him into the dirt for this show since he's not here. Cardinals, if you watched the breakfast menu last week, you would have known that I gave out the Cardinals as a money line play. That one worked out pretty well. Obviously, the Bears took down the Lions. We saw Tom Brady take out New England. But the bigger question for me is this. What were you guys doing when Mo Salah had an incredible goal against Man City yesterday to go up 2-1? Unfortunately, couldn't hold the lead for Liverpool. This is a football show, right? Nothing.
I didn't even watch football outside the Packer game. I was with family yesterday, so I missed a lot. Like, I saw the tail end of the Bears game, which wasn't that exciting by the end, but I didn't see your soccer takes or a lot of the NFL for that matter. I missed Tom Brady. 2 of the 10 best soccer teams on the planet playing yesterday in Liverpool. Yeah. It was a fantastic matchup that led to me having one too many cocktails during the day. What are you going to do? What did you guys think about the monster performance out of Tyreek Hill? 11 catches, 186 yards, 3 TDs. AB, we're just kind of used to this now, right?
No, I mean, he hadn't been doing that all year, but
that's true.
It was coming. But you knew it was coming. Like, at some point, you knew they were going to get him involved and get him involved in a big way. So, and if you had him, gosh, you did well. I didn't.
Apparently, I just saw this tweet right before we went live. I want to make sure, let me scroll back to it. Tyreek Hill was not in the top 3 Millie Maker lineups. All 3 of them had Tyreek Hill light yesterday. That would be Cordarrelle Patterson, 5 catches, 82 yards, and 3 TDs. Matt, did you have any Patterson yesterday?
No, I did not. So pretty dead in tournaments. My cash lineup kept me afloat. That's why we were able to draw a slight profit, but tournaments just drawn dead without CPAT.
Matt, what was your biggest takeaway from yesterday in the NFL? What stood out to you most of anything? We're going to do a little bit of a recap right now, a little bit of a review before we dive into this Monday night game.
Yeah, for DFS or just for straight up NFL?
In general, let's just talk a little NFL today.
I was pretty surprised with like Mahomes and Tyreek Hill. Like, if you double stack the Chiefs, I think you were drawn pretty dead just because everything went to Tyreek Hill. Everything. Like Patrick Mahomes didn't even throw for 300 yards. But Tyreek Hill accounted for 180 some of them. Just absolutely mind-blowing. Like, if you played Kelsey, you were just stone dead.
Yeah. It's like video game numbers for him. It really is. He's on a completely different level. AB, what did you take away from yesterday?
That even if you have Derrick Henry, if you don't have receivers, you're worse than the Jets. You need receivers. Like, you can have Derrick Henry. It doesn't matter. Like,
AB,
you will get beat if you don't have receivers.
Oof.
Maybe I have a question for you. So, like, Jeremy McNichols, I don't know why they're using him as a third down back, and I don't remember how many catches he had, but it was a lot. Why do they not trust Derrick Henry to handle any sort of pass game work? Like, not even screen passes. I just don't get it.
He's not. It's Derrick Henry. If you watch him, he needs to get going. Once he gets going, then he's good. Like, that type of skill set doesn't really work really well in the passing game. It just doesn't. Like, he is downhill and he needs 4 or 5 yards to get going. Now, once he gets going, you're in trouble. But if he doesn't get going, then I mean, you can easily tackle him, because once his feet stop, he got to catch the ball, turn around. It sounds real simple, but for a smaller, quicker guy, that it just fits. It fits really well with him.
That makes sense.
I cannot believe the Jets won that game.
I can't.
One of the few things that I actually was like, I had on in my living room once I got back from watching Liverpool play was the end of that Jets game, which was just incredible. My wife's trying to check and see if she's got anybody. I was like, I promise you don't have any Jets. It's just not how it's going to go.
That was the only thing. Like Josh in the chat's talking about Kamara not catching the ball anymore. That's something I definitely didn't expect either. And I think that will change at some point. There's just such a large sample of Kamara being an elite receiver out of the backfield, even a guy you can use out of the slot. It just doesn't make sense for him to not receive that kind of work. And I know Jameis hasn't historically thrown a lot to running backs, but no targets is egregious.
Is that it though? Is it just Jameis? Is that how stark the difference in strategy is between Jameis Winston and Drew Brees?
I don't think so. I mean, they're super slow this year. Their plays per game way down. Their pass rate above expectation is, well, it's actually below expectation, well below expectation. And then like for Kamara, he still was efficient, 120 yards on the ground, but then they bring Taysom Hill in on the red zone, and Taysom Hill had some grown man runs. I can't take anything away from him, but it's just frustrating if you invested in Kamara. And I did have a fair amount of him yesterday. So that just seeing the losing goal line work to Taysom, losing pass game work, not really to anybody, but like Ty Montgomery a little bit, just frustrating for Kamara owners.
They're a different team. They're a different team than with Drew Brees. Now they want to lean more on their run game and their defense. That's what they want to do, as opposed to what we've seen the last 10 years, 15 years or whatever, of them just throwing the ball around 5,000 yards from Drew and receivers that you barely even know catching for yards. It's like, what?
Does different mean worse?
No, not worse. Just not as exciting, I'll say, as a team that passes the ball all the time. It's like if Kansas City all of a sudden went to a Edwards-Helaire 30 times a game, right? They just started giving them the ball. It's just they could win that way, but it's just not as exciting as Tyreek Hill and Kelsey and Mahomes throwing the ball all over the place.
I think we've touched on enough from yesterday, so I think that we can slowly but surely move this one on. I do want to touch on our schedule for the rest of the day, because we have just an absolute ton of content here at Awesemo.com on a Monday. NFL recap show. Normally, that is myself and Adam Scher. Adam is on vacation. Eric Lindquist filling in. We're going to break everything down from a DFS perspective from yesterday, so stay tuned for that one at 11. 1 p.m., that would be the Awesemo betting show on the Awesemo Odds channel, Eitan and Ben. 2 p.m., Awesemo Fantasy Football show. Eitan is back with Ben. Laffy's able to show up for that one, so you guys can get him there at 2 p.m. Pete and Eric will be doing the Yahoo NFL show at 3, and then we're back talking about this particular game that we're going to dive into now. NFL Deeper Dive with Laffy and Matt Savoca at 6:30. Matt, you will be back at 7:30 for NFL Live Before Lock, and I believe I just got tagged in a message. I got to just figure out what channel that was in. That would be Joey. Showdown projections are free today. I assume if you're watching this show or any of the other Showdown content that will pop up, that will be very interesting to you. The best thing that you can get is our projections, and they will be free for today. So now it is time to talk a little bit of Raiders and Chargers. I'm excited for this game. I'm like a mild closeted Raiders fan as of late. I feel like Derek Carr doesn't get enough love, and I am going to push that forward on this show. At least I hope that I can. But the biggest question that we have for anything right now, and AB, I'm going to start with you. Are we going to see Josh Jacobs today?
Oh my gosh, that is the question, right? If he's not ready, because of what you saw in the past with Peyton Barber, he had over 100 yards last game. Kenyon Drake can do it out of the backfield as far as catching the ball, getting yards that way. I don't think they run him out there if he's not 100%. I think they'll hold him off another week, and because it's a long season. So, and he's a running back. So as soon as he gets in there, you don't want a setback where he gets hit or dinged up again. And now you got to wait 3-4 more weeks before he's 100%. So if he's not real close to 100%, I think they hold him out.
Matt, what's your expectation? Do you think he's going to be on the field today?
To be honest with you, I don't have a real good feel for it. I do agree 100% with what AB said. And I think they can have some confidence in taking that approach because they are 3-0. They've played well without him. At the same time, I was trying to dig through Las Vegas beat reporters. There were some pretty interesting clips that came out of the Raiders practices towards the end of the week that showed Josh Jacobs, like it appeared to have him running 100% cutting on the ankle, which looked good. But again, that's practice, game time, completely different situation. This is one I think you just wait for inactives. But as we go through the show, we can do these hypotheticals if he plays, if he doesn't play.
Yeah, absolutely. So if he's playing, is the assumption that Barber is just out of the mix? Kenyon Drake is the backup for you?
I think so.
Okay. If he's out, we saw Barber play 57% of snaps. Drake played 43. Do we think that Barber is the lead guy then?
I think they just have different roles. Kenyon Drake is very clearly the pass catcher. Barber's their early down grinder. They've played a lot with positive game script. They've been winning in most of their games. They've just been able to ride Barber a little harder than I think they would have had they been trailing.
Okay. AB, let's say that Jacobs is in for tonight. Are you comfortable going to him from a fantasy standpoint, given that he's been out for the past 2 weeks?
I'm not. No. I'm not. It would scare me. Just because you don't know. I mean, you just don't know if he's 100%. If Barber and Drake were terrible and they had to run him out there because they felt like they needed him to win, then I'd probably be more inclined to play him. But they've been doing fine. They really don't need him to win. So if they play him, I would have to assume he's really close to 100%. So I guess I might play him a little bit, but I wouldn't feel very confident in it.
The pricing on these guys is really interesting. So Jacobs is at 7,600. Peyton Barber, not all that far behind at 6,800. And then Kenyon Drake, a little bit of a discount at 5,400. If Jacobs is in, can we comfortably, I'm not entirely sure we can comfortably roster any one of these guys.
I agree with you. I think if our ownership projections remain constant, and these could change based on inactive injury news that we may get through the day, Josh Jacobs is going to come in really under-owned. We have him at 2% in the captain and just 24.5% overall. He is a player that's shown a ceiling. The concerns, I think, are still there for Jacobs with pass catching. He's never really been much of a pass catcher. They didn't use him on third down much last year. They bring in Drake to occupy that role. And now that Barber's played well, I think even he could cede some snaps too. He could take some snaps from Josh Jacobs.
AB, if Jacobs is out, and I mentioned Barber 6,800, Drake 5,400, do you have a preference between the two?
Well, I think it depends on where I think the game's going to go, right?
Okay.
I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I
Okay.
do. I understand the defenses. I understand they have guys on the defensive line that can get pressure, but I think this game will go over. And with that, I lean more to Drake because I think he plays a bigger part in the passing game. So I like Drake. If Jacobs doesn't play, he will be one of the guys that I get to a lot.
And make sure everybody, I know I went over the schedule a couple minutes ago, but make sure you're watching the Deeper Dive and Live Before Lock shows tonight, because this is a gigantic piece of news that has a major trickle-down impact across everything that you're doing tonight. Josh Jacobs' status is the linchpin for most lineup construction. So you want to be watching starting at 6:30, Deeper Dive into Live Before Lock once we get that inactives report. Matt, I'm going to go back to that same question for you. If Jacobs is out, is your preference Barber? Is it Drake? Is it both? Is it neither?
It's Drake for the same reasons that AB laid out. They're projected to be trailing in this game. They're 3.5-point underdogs. That should lend itself more to Drake's opportunities compared to Barber. He gets the slight edge for me, and he's also a little bit cheaper. So your rosters look a little bit different than him, but I do think it is close.
Okay. Going to be tricky. We definitely need to pay attention to it. Right now, we've got Josh Jacobs 22% owned on DK. We've got Drake at 21%. We've got Barber at 17%. Someone's going to win a lot of money based on getting that right. I assume that it ends up being whatever I don't do. So that's how I'm feeling right about now going into this one. I'm much more in tune with the passing game for the Raiders than I am for the backfield. It certainly didn't work out well for me last week when I went to Drake and Barber was the guy. But again, we need to pay very close attention to the status of Josh Jacobs. On the other side, do we think it impacts the passing game at all based on Josh Jacobs' status? Matt, like, how much does it matter if Josh Jacobs is in for the passing game of the Raiders today?
I think very little. They have been very pass-heavy to start the year, even in week 1 when Jacobs was healthy for the most part. And then since he's been out, they haven't really changed their offense too much. Peyton Barber essentially slid into his role 1-for-1, and Kenyon Drake still occupied that pass-catching role. So I don't think a ton really changed with him going out.
I'm sort of leaning the same direction. I'm not sure the impact is going to be. The impact is only individually. I don't see the impact being like a huge team-wide change. AB, Darren Waller, 19 targets in week 1, a more pedestrian 7 in week 2 and week 3. Are we just going to go business as usual with Waller? $9,200, $400 cheaper than Austin Eckler. And oddly enough, $400 more expensive than Keenan Allen this week. Is Waller the guy? Are we going to see the monster target game like we saw in week 1? Does it matter if Jacobs is coming back? Is that going to limit him at all? Just in general, what are your thoughts on Darren Waller for tonight?
I mean, he's a heck of a player.
He really is.
He's something else. And then he gets the targets. I mean, you have some guys that are really, really good players, but then they only get 5 or 6 targets in a game. But in a ceiling game for him, he'll get 15, 16 targets. And it's just, you have to have him because he's going to catch most of them. So he's really good. Yes, I think Jacobs does play a part, but maybe not in the way you think, because if Jacobs is in, I think play action works better for them, which works with Waller, which helps him get the one-on-ones with the linebackers or causes those linebackers to come up and he can get behind them just in front of the safeties on those in routes or some of those out routes. So I think it helps him if Jacobs is in, but he's so good that it really doesn't matter. Like, he is that good. So, but going back to just a second ago, we were talking about Jacobs and Drake and Barber. If Jacobs is in, if he's doing well, I see he could get 25 carries.
Okay.
Get up to 28 carries. I think what we saw last game with Peyton Barber is the most carries he's going to get. Like, I think, like, they become a different team if Jacobs is in. I think they lean a little more to running the football as opposed to not. They're not going to run the football as much. They just don't lean on Barber as much, even though he had the 23 carries. So,
Matt, are you seeing something similar there?
Yeah, I do think AB is correct. I do think we saw an absolute ceiling from Peyton Barber in his last game. There's just a long sample of him being a non-explosive, non-difference-making runner. He's definitely serviceable, a strong NFL vet, somebody you want on your team for these situations when Jacobs goes down. But at the same time, he's just not the same back.
We need to talk a little bit more about pass catchers here. We've got Henry Ruggs at 6,400. We've got Hunter Renfrow at 5,800. Really difficult for me to try to separate those two guys. Ownership is exactly the same, 22.3%. If you have to make a choice, Matt, between Ruggs and Renfrow, do you have a priority, or are you looking for maybe more of a double stack here?
I will have double stacks just because the game is projected to be so close. At the same time, if I'm just picking between the two, I'm going to take the more targeted player in Renfrow, and it's pretty slight. You have Renfrow with the 17% target share. Ruggs is just shy of 15%, and Ruggs is used more downfield, but he's also a little bit cheaper, and we're talking Renfrow for that matter. So you're splitting hairs here. To be honest with you, in some of these tournaments, and in cash in particular, I'm not going to be playing these Raiders. When you get to this middle salary range and build, you have to play like 4 Raiders because Los Angeles is so condensed with their targets and with their carries that all of their players are really expensive. So unless you just sacrifice like your whole lineup and play just one Charger, if you're in this middle price range, you have to play like 4 Raiders.
Did you like Ruggs coming out?
No.
That was easy.
Like comparatively, like
Sure, yeah. Like, it was a pretty loaded wide receiver class relative to everyone else in his class.
Like Ruggs didn't produce anything in college.
Yeah.
So
that'll do it. He
got drafted strictly off traits, which is fine, and he has shown growth this year. And he needed time coming out. I mean, he wasn't going to step in day one and be like a Keenan Allen or anything. He's also not using that way. So I mean, Ruggs just needed time to develop.
Are you more of a believer now than you were coming out last year?
No.
He
got drafted 11 overall, man. Like this guy should have been like Julio Jones as the 11th overall pick. Like, come on. He's more like John Ross here. He's more like John Ross than he is Julio Jones to this point in his career. Now that could change. He could develop as I think the Raiders plan on having him develop. But I mean,
sure,
it's a lot of capital to spend on a guy that's a deep threat.
AB, if you're picking between Henry Ruggs and Hunter Renfrow today, do you have a lean?
I'd like to lean towards ownership, and because I think there's Renfrow is going to have to catch three balls before he can do what Ruggs could do with one, right? So Ruggs he needs 4 catches, 5 catches, and he could get you 110 yards and 2 touchdowns. Absolutely. Renfrow is going to need 10 catches to get 2 touchdowns. Like he's going to need that. Like it's just how you think this game's going to go. I'd like to think I'd lean towards Ruggs because it gives me the higher ceiling, I think, because of the big playability. But I wouldn't bet on this one. If Kevin White, because Kevin White bothers me so much because the Bears took him and he's a top 10 receiver. I need you to show out day one. And he hasn't. So he would scare me. I think Renfrow is a safer pick. But I definitely lean towards ownership. And whichever one is getting the least amount of ownership, that's probably the one I'll go with.
Well, luckily we don't have lock in 10 seconds because they have the exact same ownership right now.
I'll flip a coin and just
you had to bring up Kevin White.
I know I did.
Bad memories.
Yes.
Bad memories of Kevin White at West Virginia, correct?
Yep.
Yes.
I still got some of it up here. A little bit up here. Not too much left, but it's still up here from time to time. All right, we've talked a lot about skill position players. Is there anyone we're missing? Any down the line cheaper guys, Matt, that you're looking at for tonight, saving some salary on the Raiders side?
We didn't talk Bryan Edwards. He did play really well in their most recent game. And Edwards coming out was a really interesting prospect. He was super productive in college. He just went to kind of a low volume pass attack for South Carolina that never really had any quarterback play. So he's interesting. I think he's played on par with Ruggs this year, if not better. He's a little bit cheaper, which makes him interesting. He was also very targeted in their last game. And then one interesting thing that Las Vegas will do situationally is use 2 tight ends. They did this a lot with Witten last year, and they've been doing it with Foster Moreau this year. It hasn't led to a lot of targets, but if you're just talking about players that are on the field, and Foster Moreau is a big kind of red zone threat tight end, he more plays that role than anything else. If he does score a touchdown, it could help win some sort of GPP or tournament like that. But overall, I don't think he's the strongest play overall. Just if you're looking for a punt, he's someone I would throw out there.
Punts are really interesting. We don't have anyone under $2,400 more than 10% owned. We don't have anyone under $5,400 more than 20% owned. There's not a lot of like down the line value. Nobody really sneaking into play. AB, do you see anybody from the Raiders on the cheap that you'd like to get to today?
Not really, man. I really don't. Because to get that really cheap guy, you're really sacrificing a spot right there and just hoping. Whereas, if you put somebody in there, they're gonna get. You have a better chance of getting points from that person. They're gonna be on the field. You're just kind of hoping if you put Foster in there, if you put Parham in there for as a tight end positions for both teams, but I'd just as well take a kicker. If I'm gonna do that, like I take a kicker and just hope it is a up and down football game, up and down the field, but it just don't convert in the end zone. So that's what I would do if I'm gonna take one of those really low on guys, and I'm just hoping like that.
Yeah, if I'm leaning a direction of like non-skilled position players, I'm definitely looking more kickers than defenses here. Chargers 3,200 at D, Raiders 2,800. I would rather just have kickers in this scenario than defenses. I don't really see a ton of ways to save a lot of money. I think it's just the way that this game breaks down. 50-point total, very, very high, at least on the Charger side, very high level skill position players. So you know exactly what you're getting with Mike Williams, with Eckler, with Keenan Allen. It's hard to want to go all the way towards the bottom. There's one guy we haven't talked about yet. I mentioned him in the lead up that I am a bit of a fan. I'm curious to know your thoughts. AB, we'll start with you. Is this going to be a big day for Derek Carr? Chargers defense, pretty tricky.
Yeah, they are tricky. I think it's going to ride on whether or not they have their top back in Jacobs, because you take pressure off of the quarterback by running the football. I don't believe they lean on Peyton Barber in this case. So, yeah, he can have a huge game if Jacobs is out. I think his ceiling is higher if Jacobs is out of the game, because I think the Chargers are going to score. I think it will be a high-scoring game, and I believe they're going to have to score a lot of points to win it. Over 30, I'll say, and I think Derek Carr will be the reason. It won't be because they're running football. It'll be because he's throwing the football.
Chargers defense at Football Outsiders through 3 weeks, 15th against the pass, 31st against the run. Something we might need to pay attention to. Matt, how are you feeling about Derek Carr today?
I like Derek Carr quite a bit. And you bring up a really interesting point. So Brandon Staley, the new head coach for the Chargers, he's been someone historically who's been willing to give up points on the ground, kind of to avoid the big plays through the air, which I think does create an interesting matchup for Las Vegas. With that said, Derek Carr has just played really well so far to start the year. And if they're down in this game, they're going to have to throw the ball either way. So it's hard to get away from Carr.
Yeah, I'm loving him today. 6th in Football Outsiders, DER, 9th in DVOA. Just a Derek Carr guy. It doesn't help that I want to call him David Carr most of the time. Just, it gets ingrained in your head sometimes, but I expect I'm with you, AB. I'm with you guys. I think that the Raiders have a big day here, and I think a lot of that is going to be on the back of Derek Carr. Matt, is there anything regarding the Raiders that we still need to touch on? Anything you think we've missed? Anything we want to try to unearth? Any stones we've left unturned?
I don't think so. I think we hit on every single skill position player of consequence.
AB, are we missing anybody?
No. Zay Jones is he gonna play? Is he gonna do anything? I mean,
no, I don't think so.
No. I don't think so.
I don't think so either. All right. Well, let's talk promo codes, because that's the spot in the show where we are right now. NFL Strategy Show is that promo code. Get an Awesemo Plus weekly pass for just $29.95. That's 25% off your first week of Awesemo Plus. Covers everything. Just because it has NFL in the title does not mean that you're getting only NFL content. You get access to all of our projections, ownership, premium Slack, top stacks, top pitchers. Well, they're still top pitchers for a little bit. We've got some playoff baseball to go. Multiple top stacks. We've got NHL probably coming back soon enough. You guys can get Jake Hari back in your life. Basketball is right around the corner. Preseason right now. Kickoff of the regular season is in 2 more weeks. That's my wheelhouse, so you'll get to see me a little bit more for that bad boy. Lineup builder, which we're going to use in a little bit to build out a lineup at the end of this show, and more. Again, NFL Strategy Show. You can see the promo code on the screen. I'm making gestures with my hands. You guys can't see that. There's a total different graphic on there, so don't even worry about what I'm doing. Just use that promo code. $29.95 will get you in the door. Now we get to talk a little bit about the Chargers. I am fascinated by this game. 3-0 Raiders, 2-1 Chargers. Chiefs did what they needed to do to get back to 2-2 yesterday. We've got the Chargers coming in off of that monster win against Kansas City last week. Justin Herbert, 4 TD passes. We've got to see if he can continue that. Eckler's been ultra consistent with carries and targets and touchdowns. Mike Williams has been a revelation through 3 weeks. 12 targets, 10 targets, 9 targets, 4 TDs so far this season. Keenan Allen. Matt, we're going to look to you. Who is the first Charger you want to have in a lineup today?
It's really hard to get away from Herbert. And I think this becomes more of a conversation like cash versus GPPs. I think Herbert's the guy you want in your lineup either way. In tournaments, I'm comfortable getting to either a Mike Williams or Keenan Allen in the captain spot over him, just so you can get a little bit of leverage on ownership there. But in my cash games, Justin Herbert, I think, is a pretty easy captain.
Can't really disagree there. AB, who's your favorite Charger today?
It's hard to go against Herbert. It's very hard. But I will say I love Eckler and Williams. Those two guys, I think, have crazy ceilings. They're super explosive players. I think we've seen them try to get Mike more involved to become so they can have two number ones. We already know what we're going to get from Keenan Allen. So if they can get Williams, instead of being that flash in the pan kind of like he was last year, where he'd have a big game then kind of go away, they're getting him more involved early, and it makes them more of an explosive offense. I like him. If he could go off, 10 catches, 160 yards, 2 touchdowns. He could be that guy because we all know Eckler and Keenan Allen are the two that people are coming in trying to stop. And they're going to if we're going to lose, then we'll lose with Mike Williams. And okay, well, he can beat you.
Getting the Chargers right is so difficult. We have Mike Williams, 10,200, by the way. Mike Williams is the most expensive non-quarterback on this slate. I would not have guessed that prior to today, yet here we are. Eckler is $600 cheaper than Williams, and then Keenan Allen is $8,800. He's $1,400 cheaper than Mike Williams. All three guys are essentially owned the same, 36%, 38%, 37%. We're going to call that all the same. AB, if you got to leave somebody out of that group, because all three of those guys are relevant, they all can't get there. I mean, if they do, I assume the Chargers have 55 real points. Who scares you the most in that group of three?
Well, this right here is going to really suck, but Mike Williams, I'll probably leave him out if I got to leave one of the three.
Right.
I'm not Eckler. I think he does it on the ground. He's a huge part of the passing game as well. So he's not going anywhere. And then Keenan Allen, well, he's Keenan Allen. He's like Waller on the other side. Like he very well could see 16, 17 targets. So you don't want to miss that. So if there's one that scares me, it would be Mike Williams, but I think he's a great play. But if I got to choose two of the three, yeah, he has to go.
Matt, what about you? Williams, Eckler, Allen. How do we sift through three guys that are essentially the same from an ownership perspective?
Yeah, I agree with you. And I'm kind of surprised the ownership is sitting with them all even, just given what we've seen from Keenan Allen throughout his career. And now he's significantly cheaper than Mike Williams. We were talking before the show on FanDuel. He's like $1,500 cheaper. So it's not that 500 price difference we get sometimes. It is significant, and you can use that salary a lot today. There aren't as many viable punts as we've seen on some other Showdown slates. So saving that salary is key. I will have more Keenan Allen and Eckler for that reason.
The pricing is just really, really wild to me. It's hard for me to look at this and see Keenan Allen at 8,800 and think like, I don't want to jam him in. But the place that I really want to jam Keenan Allen in, the place that I think he's the best, is at captain today. 9.7% ownership at captain. I think that Keenan Allen is the best captain option on the slate relative to salary. So your best GPP option. Are you on board with me on that one, Matt?
Yeah, I agree 100%, especially on DraftKings. We talk about this a lot, just the nature of this scoring, being a full PPR site, being touchdowns worth more for receivers and running backs than quarterbacks. There's a very real chance that if the volume's funneled through one guy, or even just the touchdowns funneled through one player, they can outscore the quarterback in the captain slot. So I do like Keenan Allen a lot for that reason, because he's cheaper and he lets you do a little bit more with your lineup. And again, we are not seeing Keenan Allen coming in more owned than Mike Williams right now. So it's not like you're eating extra ownership either.
Hey, B, how you feeling about Keenan Allen in the captain spot, given the fact that he's in less than 10% of lineups there?
I love it. Yeah. Because he, like I said, he can get those 15 targets easy. I mean, it's not a stretch at all. Like he can really see them there. You could see them coming out and he has 6 catches in the first quarter and you're like, what? And we're sitting there looking at the game. Like if I don't have him in that captain spot, I might be in trouble tonight. So, I mean, I think he'd be a great play there. And with the low ownership at the captain spot, absolutely.
13 targets in week 1, 8 in week 2, then 12 last week against the Chiefs. I'm mad for Keenan Allen. I feel like he's being disrespected with this salary. He's going to be likely my highest exposed non-quarterback, because it's really hard to get away from Herbert or from Derek Carr just in this sort of scenario. But I'm loving Keenan Allen today. The question then becomes, for all intents and purposes, we know what we're getting out of Mike Williams. We know what we're getting out of Austin Eckler. We know what we're getting out of Keenan Allen. Matt, is there someone else that we should be paying attention to for this Chargers offense?
It's just so concentrated between those two receivers specifically, and then Eckler, that I think that's where you want to focus your time. But if you're just looking for cheaper options because you want to save some salary or get contrarian, Jared Cook is somebody who's been very involved, still playing 70% of the snaps. The wide receiver 3 is technically Jalen Guyton. He's barely been used at all this year, but 62% of the snaps for Guyton last week. Even Donald Parham, this LA team will occasionally use 2 tight ends. He played 47% of the snaps. And once you get below them, it gets pretty thin pretty fast.
It is really rough right now. AB, are you liking anybody outside of the big 3 for the Chargers?
I don't think I like anybody, but I don't like them. But I mean, I could definitely see, if you're playing 150 lineups, I can definitely see you getting some Guyton in there. You don't know, Parham, getting some of those guys that, if they do have 4 or 5 targets and they can catch 3 of them for 40 yards and maybe sneak a touchdown, then they could really help in some of those GPPs that you have. So, but I don't feel confident in it at all.
Then we're on the same page. The highest owned punt that we have right now, Matt, 9% owned Larry Roundtree. He's $1,000. Is that a value option you're looking to go to?
Yeah, I'm considering him in cash, and it's not because I want to. He just unlocks a build where I think you get a lot of upsides. If you play Roundtree in cash, you can play basically 4 studs. You could play like some combination of Herbert, Carr, Waller, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Eckler, and basically mix and match them to your liking. So that's the reason why. It's not because I think Roundtree is a strong individual play himself, but I think the combination of Roundtree and 4 studs outscores the combination of like 3 middling Raiders and then 2 studs.
It is
if that makes
weird
sense
to see this concentration at the top, this ghost town in the center. There are no Chargers to be found in that middle section for the most part. And then you just have to sort of hope for Larry Roundtree to get 3 carries and 1 target. What's the goal here out of Larry Roundtree?
If you don't play Roundtree and you go up to somebody else, you essentially have to play like 3 Raiders. And I mean, like you're at least playing like 2 of Ruggs, Renfro, Bryan Edwards, or something like that. Kenyon Drake, Peyton Barber, like you're going to have 2 of those guys in your lineup.
AB, are you assuming you would have more Chargers or Raiders in your general construction, or is this more of a balanced game and a balanced build?
Probably more Chargers. I think if this turns into a shootout type of game, I think the people are going to see the ball. You're going to need Drake, Waller, and David Carr. That's or Derek Carr. Sorry, I did say David. Yep, I know.
I told you, man. It gets stuck in your head.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I did
that to you. My apologies.
During my draft, 2002, David was the number 1 pick to Houston. So, and he really failed us. I wish Julius Peppers would have been the number 1 pick because he failed us. You got to ball out if you're the top pick in the draft, all right?
You certainly do.
But Peppers did. So we were good. Number 2.
He certainly did. He certainly did.
But yeah, I think you'll have to have those 3 for the Raiders. And it could go so many different ways with the Chargers. With Herbert, I believe, leading the way. But it could go Williams. It could go Keenan Allen. You could get Eckler with 2 rushing touchdowns, 2 touchdowns out of the backfield as far as receiving. So could go a lot of different ways.
This is a great game for just a single game contest. There's just so much high end talent that we can get to. Matt, just speaking generally, how do you see this game playing out?
I like LA in the game. I would take them against the spread if approaching it just from a pure betting perspective. With that said, I think because they have the higher implied team total, I expect them to win the game. They're where I want to play more in DFS. And I think you can also look to them being the more concentrated offense overall, unlike Las Vegas, who spread it around pretty evenly across the board, except for that week 1 where Waller had 19 targets.
follow-up question for this. What is the game script that you're not prepared for here? Like what's the thing that we could look at and see, like, how did that lineup, how did anybody play that lineup and how did it win the Millie? What's the weird game script we get tonight?
It's probably something that has to do with like a really defensive heavy game, a low scoring game, because I do think people will be prepared for the Las Vegas win as well in a high scoring environment, you know, like captaining some of those backs with Derek Carr. I think if you play the defense, some of the kickers, and maybe leave out one of the quarterbacks, that'll be really contrarian. I do not believe that will be the winning lineup overall. But again, in these large field tournaments, you're playing to not be duplicated. You're trying to have some first place equity. And I think that would be one way to do so.
AB, do you see this as a day where we can get to defenses, or do you have interest in the kickers, or is this very much a different style game for you?
Maybe the kickers a little bit. With an offensive game, that's what I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be a high scoring game. I'm going to take the over. But with that, I mean, you could get kicker going 3 out of 4 field goals, and he could have 3 extra points, you know, and that could help you. But I don't believe that the defenses are going to play a part in this. I mean, outside of just getting their head beat in, giving up over 30 points. That's
the defensive touchdown for this one just doesn't feel like that kind of game. Too much talent at quarterback on both sides. It's not going to be a place that I'm leaning. I ran some data earlier before this show started. Defenses were not something that I was likely to be getting to with any sort of major priority.
But how much does it matter if you give up 30 points and you score a touchdown? Like, I can definitely see Bosa getting a strip sack and them picking it up and scoring, right? I don't think they have to throw in an interception for them to score a touchdown, but I can see it happening. You can score a touchdown, but then you still give up 30 points. I don't think it's really going to matter.
It does help that the Chargers and Raiders are both pretty lowly priced as defenses, $3,200 for the Chargers, $2,800 for the Raiders. And the fact that there isn't any real clear options below them, I think that the touchdown could help out a little bit more than it normally does. But I'm with you. You're going to need to really augment that with a couple additional sacks, maybe an interception or two. If the points get there, I think it's going to be a problem if this game does end up going over the 50-point total in general. Anything else we want to touch on for the Chargers, Matt?
I don't think so. I think we hit on all the viable punts. Like you mentioned, strategy-wise, I'm trying to play multiple studs from the Chargers, 2, if not 3, when possible. And that outside of tournaments, I think that's where you get weird. I'm talking more like low-risk contests, cash contests. I do think you want to prioritize the Chargers studs, not only because they're favored, because they're very concentrated as well.
All righty. We're going to head to a build the lineup section right now. I'm going to do a little bit of a read for our sponsor. That would be No House Advantage. But Jordan, I need you to do something for me on the back end. Can you put a poll in so that someone can choose, or the public can choose our captain for this lineup build that we're going to do? I have the choices at the bottom of the run sheet if you want to check that out. But for now, we're going to talk a little bit about No House Advantage, the presenting sponsor of this show. You don't have to worry about fantasy points here. We're talking about player props, NBA, MLB, NFL, PGA. This is fully 100% peer-to-peer. They're giving you over 500 player props, making it the largest provider of player props in the industry. All new users get a $25 deposit bonus when they use the promo code Awesemo when they sign up. We have a ton of No House Advantage tools on the website that'll basically build your lineups for you. During the NBA season, we had optimal lineups. You just show up, grab a lineup, pop it in, and you're good to go. We're doing the work for you. We're telling you how frequently every one of those props hit an over and an under. This is all at awesemo.com. Go directly there. Hell, you can use the promo code that I referenced earlier today and sign up if you'd like. But No House Advantage is the presenting sponsor of this show. They are the presenting sponsor of a lot of stuff we do, including my contenders video. So I'm happy to do a read for them. Jordan, you got that poll ready for me, or do I need to do it? Appreciate you. And by the way, 420 people in here, 80 likes. We're going to get that number north of 100. We definitely need to have more likes on this show than it ever has when Laffy is the host, so that I can make sure that he knows that happened. The 4 captain choices are Herbert, Carr, Allen, Williams. And right now, through 14 votes, a lot of them going to Keenan Allen. He's got 79% of the build. which makes sense to me. He should be the guy. Allen now at 58%. We're getting the votes in. I'm going to give it another 15, 20 seconds, but it's looking to me like we are going to be building a lineup with Keenan Allen at captain. So if we're going to do that, if we're going to go to a Keenan Allen at captain lineup, I think we're leaning more towards the GPP style build. I don't think he's going to be the optimal cash captain for today. So let's pretend that Keenan Allen at captain is a lineup we're building in one of the larger field GPPs. Jordan, we're going to build this bad boy in our lineup builder. Another great feature at Awesemo.com. We're going to slot Keenan Allen into the captain spot. Thank you to everybody that voted in the poll. Keenan Allen winning by a landslide. Herbert, Carr, and Williams all basically tied. Keenan Allen pulling half of the votes. So we've got Keenan Allen in. AB, I'm going to start with you here. Who is the next player into our lineup?
Oh, man. So many. The question mark with Jacobs just kind of, we're assuming that he plays or he doesn't play. What are we assuming here?
I'll let you lead with that. You make the decision. If you want to go to Jacobs, we're going to assume that he's in. If you want to go to Peyton Barber, we're probably going to assume he's out.
Nope, I am going to Hunter Renfrow. That's what I'm doing.
I like it. I like it. What are you seeing for Renfrow today? Given the fact that we're going to have Keenan Allen in this lineup at the captain spot, we're going to be bringing in Renfrow as well. We're just expecting a lot of passing here?
Yeah, I just don't think there's a script without Renfrow being involved to some degree, right? I would love for him to get his ceiling game. He has 8 catches for 94 yards, a touchdown. Like, I would love to see that. But I don't think if it's a high-scoring game, if it's a low-scoring game, I don't think it matters with him. I think he'll still see his 5-6 targets.
Matt, you're going to be up next here. Keenan Allen in at captain, Hunter Renfrow in at one of the flex spots, I guess you could say. I have a feeling you're going to be going to a quarterback here. I'm just curious which one it's going to be. And if you're not, then I'm even more interested.
It's Herbert because we have Allen in the captain spot. So we need a big game out of Allen, and just by necessity, that's going to have to come through Herbert.
All righty. I like it. I think that Renfrow can have a pretty good score without Carr having to come with him, just because of the volume. The targets could just be there. If the touchdowns aren't there, that's fine. So we've got Allen, Renfrow, and Herbert in the lineup. We can average $6,600 over the final 3 spots. AB, are we adding Derek Carr to this lineup, or are we going to go a different direction?
Oh, man. I think we go. I like Waller. Gosh, how do you build this lineup without Waller? So throw in Waller. We got to figure it out from there, but Waller's getting in.
We do need to figure it out from there. All right, Darren Waller in. We've got 5,300 for both spots remaining. Matt, do you want to grab a punt here, leaving us a little bit of extra money so that AB can make an easier choice? Or are you going to take an actual name here and make him pick out of the Steven Andersons and Derek Carriers of the world?
So I think there's a couple things you could do. You could go the full punt route, get another stud, or you could take a middling approach. And I think the one Charger that is in this middle range in price is Jared Cook. And he also fits our stack with Justin Herbert. So then we end up with Jared Cook stacked with Justin Herbert and Keenan Allen. And then from there, we have a decent amount of salary, 6,200 left. So we could either take another Raiders receiver. We could play a kicker. We could play a defense. Just leaves us a lot of options.
Yeah.
I think you're killing us with Jared Cook on this build, man. 6,200 leaves us a real tricky spot. Peyton Barber, too expensive. Henry Ruggs, $200, too expensive.
But Drake is there.
Drake is there at 5,400. Do we go to Drake to finish this lineup out?
There.
We don't have a ton of choices at 6,200. We have a lot of choices. They're not very good. Let me be more specific here.
True. I would go. I would go Drake.
Okay.
Yes, I would go Drake here. Just like Renfrow, I think he can play, and however this game kind of, especially if Jacobs doesn't play, right? If Jacobs is out, then I think he has a way of playing, and he'll be involved in this game, regardless of what the game script is.
So for this lineup, Jordan, what's up? Jared Cook. You're good. So here's the question. Allen, Renfrow, Herbert, Waller, Cook, Drake. Matt, can we play this lineup regardless of Josh Jacobs' status?
Yes, I think we can because Kenyon Drake is so involved in the pass game.
Yep.
I see you nodding, AB, so I'm assuming you agree.
Yes, I agree. Yep.
then that's a good lineup. We built a lineup that does. You could slot this one in right now. You don't really have to pay attention too much as we get closer to lock tonight. We gave you the goods independent of Josh Jacobs' status tonight, which is very much a gigantic question mark. I like that lineup. I might have to slot that one to the side for right now. Give it a little look-see when we get closer to lock. Let's talk best bets for this game. I feel bad. I don't want to give out the goods because I've got the breakfast menu recording in 9 minutes where I'm going to be giving some picks here as well. But I'll lead it off. I shouldn't be giving anything on this show with former NFL player. Matt, you are the foremost NFL expert here. I'm going to give the goods here. I'm going Chargers. I like them giving the points this week. I think that the Raiders, I don't want to say this, AB, cover your ears here. Raiders get the Bears next week. I think that's a decent spot for the Raiders. My apologies. I don't want to say this while I'm on the show. I feel kind of safe because we're miles and miles away from each other. I'm not saying this in your presence, but I do think this looks a little bit better for the Raiders next week.
Miles and miles away. I may just be outside.
Oh, that's fine. If you live in Wilmington, North Carolina, man, let's go get a drink. So I am leaning towards the Chargers right now. AB, what are you feeling about this game? If you're betting on anything in this one, what do you like?
I love the Chargers. I love the Chargers and the over, actually. I would parlay that. That's actually what I am going to do. I'm going to parlay that because I have a little bias. I have Herbert and Williams on my fantasy team. So
okay.
I really, really need them to go off. So, but I do like the over. I think a lot of points will be scored. There'll be some defensive plays made, but it's just because of the sheer volume of offensive plays that's going to be out there tonight. But over and the Chargers.
Matt, where are you leaning?
I like the Chargers as well. Okay. And you guys took, I think, all of the best points for this game. So I'm with you guys.
I can't imagine that I had a single good point about this game, but I appreciate it.
I'll give you another one if you want like a player prop. Austin Eckler.
Yeah, let's do it.
Austin Eckler over 56.5 rushing yards.
Okay.
Seems quite low for a team favored by 3.5. And Eckler has quietly been handling a lot of work in this backfield. Like even just going back to last week, Austin Eckler, his snaps rose all the way to 74%. And I know he only saw 11 attempts on that, but still, I think that's very important. Plus, Larry Roundtree, like super inefficient in the red zone. He had -2 yards on his red zone carries. Eckler, I think, is pretty safe.
There are things in my life that I legitimately love. I like the Chargers in this one. Matt, you like the Chargers in this one. AB, you like the Chargers in this one. Sean V in chat, absolutely zero chance the Chargers win this game. I have never been more confident in anything in my life than the three of us liking the Chargers and him thinking that can't happen. Perfect.
I've been wrong on the Raiders a lot this year. I need to live up to that.
I have been right on the Raiders a lot this year. So I hope that I am right here once again. Guys, is there anything else that we need to touch on with this game? I know we're coming in maybe a little early, but I think we've hit on everything. Matt, is there anything that we've missed for this game? Anything that we should have our eye on other than Josh Jacobs news? Is there anything we should be paying attention to?
I don't think so. I think we have a pretty comprehensive breakdown.
In our build, if you didn't want to look at Cook, I would definitely think about a kicker in there. You know,
okay.
I think a kicker could, with 2 field goals of 40+ yards, I think he could really outscore Cook there and just could give you a different lineup. But that's it.
Yeah, if we take those final 2 guys out, pop Vizcaino in, that allows us to get to Ruggs. We'd be able to double up there. That the Chargers are just in no man's land in that 4 to 7K range. Once you get above Cook, you're going all the way to the top to one of the studs. It's going to be really fun to see the builds here. I can't wait. I love playing Showdown. Probably one of my favorite things to do outside of just general NBA stuff. But tonight, we've got a good one on our hands. Follow Matt Gajeski at Matt_Gajeski. Follow Alex Brown at Alex Brown 96. Follow me at Josh Engelman. You will not get the same sort of NFL takes as you will from these gentlemen. Guys, thank you for joining us one last time. Hit that like button. We want to run that number well north of where we are right now, just to rub it in Lofty's face. He will be back with you guys next Monday for this bad boy. Matt, AB, thank you guys for joining me. I appreciate having it. Good luck tonight, everybody. Win some money. We'll talk to you guys later.